On this episode of RevHang, Ben and I do our mid-season review of the 2023 motorsports season. Let's do it. Hello everybody and welcome back to RevHang. I'm Nathan and alongside me virtually is my good friend and co-host Ben Bagley. How you doing, Ben?
Good. Finally started to get the office set up. I'm back to recording on the desktop with an actual microphone, so I am super excited for this podcast.
Solid stuff. Glad you could be here in full swing. All of your setup done. That is always nice to get that fully done. I am also working on getting myself upgraded into a new PC. So we are modernizing here at RevHang and looking to the future.
Yeah.
But we have a bunch of things to talk about. This is the mid-season review podcast. We do have two races to talk about in the IndyCar series, but nothing in Formula One this week in terms of races. But we'll start with IndyCar and the Music City Grand Prix in Nashville from a few weeks ago. Qualifying, the top 10 were Scott McLaughlin, Pato O'Ward, Colton Herta, Alex Palou, David Malukas, Romain Grosjean, Will Power, Kyle Kirkwood, Joseph Newgarden, and Alex Rossi. Moving into the race, McLaughlin extended his lead early on and put pressure on the rest of the field. David Malukas had a rear wing failure on lap 12 after a fantastic start, causing a caution. Colton Herta got hit several times on the restart and forced into the wall. He was then forced to pit, which ruined his race. Unfortunately for him, he is the king of bad luck this year. Kyle Kirkwood caught up to McLaughlin and took the lead through pit stop strategy. Palou also caught up to the two leaders on a risky fuel-saving strategy and was trying to hit this crazy fuel number all throughout the end of the race. Linus Lundqvist hit the wall with 10 laps to go, bringing out the caution flag, and Jack Harvey hit the wall under caution in Romain Grosjean style. The race restarted with 7 laps to go, and there was a big pileup on the restart, bringing out the red flag because IndyCar likes to red flag the race really close to the end so that they can finish under green. The race restarted as a 4-lap shootout to the end, and it ended with Kirkwood in front, followed by McLaughlin and Palou. So that was the top 3. 4th and 5th were Joseph Newgarden and Scott Dixon. 6 through 10 was Grosjean, Ericsson, O'Ward, Lundgaard, and Power. 11 through 15 was Castroneves, Ilott, Armstrong, VK, and Rahal. 16 through 20 was Hunter Ray, Stingray Robb, Ferrucci, Rossi, and Canapino. And then 21 through 27 were Herta, Rosenqvist, Peterson, Harvey, Lundqvist, DeFrancesco, and Malukas. And I do believe that Colton Herta was the last of the finishers. Quite possibly.
Yeah, there's always a chance.
Yeah, there were a lot of DNFs, especially at the end of the race, but it was not the Nashville that we know and love this year.
No, I had my popcorn out. I was all ready, and it was an okay race, but it wasn't the Nashville I was used to from last year for sure.
Yeah, it's usually been absolute carnage the last 2 years. And it was kind of shaping up to be that way in the practice sessions and qualifying because it rained for like the entire weekend before the race. And then when the race happened, it was nice and sunny, super hot, no moisture on the track. And honestly, all the treachery came from the marbles off the line. And I will say the marbles, with all of that green flag running, were absolutely insane.
Yeah, they were actually just undone by the amount of good racing there was.
Yeah. It was
not any crazy pileups or anything like that. I mean, we had a small 3-car one, but that's a lot smaller than what we had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, for sure. It was usually we're used to carnage in Nashville, but that's not the way it was this year, which is fine. You can't ask for carnage every year always. I remember that's how we felt. The F1 community felt about Baku after the first couple of races there. They thought it was just going to be craziness all the time, and then it seems like it's about 50-50 once it leveled out.
Yeah, if we ask for it too much, we're going to start sounding like NASCAR fans. And,
Right.
well, that's not a NASCAR podcast.
No, not yet. Maybe in the future, but I doubt that very much. But yeah, so not a banger like we're used to. But it was still I would say a good race from just a objective point of view.
Yeah, I was tempted to play a drinking game called Take a Shot every single time Herta hits the wall.
You would have taken like 4 shots at the same time, and that would have been it.
Would have died.
But yeah, so that kind of wraps up the Nashville Grand Prix. Let's move on to the IMS Road Course Race 2, the Gallagher Grand Prix. Go through the top 10 in qualifying. It was Graham Rahal, Christian Lundgaard, Alex Rossi, Pato O'Ward, Devlin DeFrancesco, Roman Grosjean, Marcus Armstrong, Alex Palou, Felix Rosenqvist, and Scott McLaughlin. At the beginning of the race, DeFrancesco absolutely sent it around the outside of Graham Rahal and took the lead of the race. Dixon, Newgard, and Grosjean and Armstrong got into an accident on lap 1, causing a caution. I think Armstrong might have DNF'd there. No, actually he didn't. I don't know if there were any DNFs then.
I don't think there were.
Oh yeah, Rosenqvist DNF'd.
Oh.
And Peterson DNF'd, but he pulled in at the very end of the race. So, 2 DNFs, but none of them were caused by that accident. Rossi made progress all the way up to P3 by lap 9. Graham Rahal also took the lead on lap 9. Dixon managed to cycle his way to the front of the field after a fantastic pit stop strategy in the middle of the race. Rahal caught up to Dixon by the end of the race, but couldn't pass him, and so our podium was Dixon, Rahal, and O'Ward. I felt so bad for Graham Rahal. I wanted him to win so bad.
He was doing so good. It was awesome to see him, because he's usually not that far up.
Yeah.
So to see him have such a commanding race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been 6 years since he's won a race. He used to win races all the time. I would love to see him win a race again in the near future. That was kind of his one shot, though, I'm afraid. But maybe he has been faster the last few weeks, closer to the front of the field, so maybe he'll get another shot. But yeah. I did feel bad that Scott Dixon had an absolute masterclass of a race after starting basically at the back after having that accident on lap 1. But yeah, absolutely insane comeback drive from Scott Dixon. I don't know if we went through the results yet. I don't think we did. So podium was Dixon, Rahal, O'Ward. 4th and 5th were Lundgaard and Rossi. 6 through 10 was Power, Palou, McLaughlin, Kirkwood, and Ericsson. 11 through 15 was VK, Lundqvist, Herta, Harvey, and Castroneves. 16 through 20 was Malukas, Eilert, Grosjean, DeFrancesco, and Hunter Ray. 21 through 25 was Canapino, Stingray Robb, Ferrucci, Armstrong, and Newgarden. And then 26th and 27th, I believe they were both DNFs, were Peterson and Rosenqvist.
Yeah, Will Power had a pretty good drive too.
He did. Very good drive.
See, he started all the way back in 16th.
Yeah, made it all the way up to 6th. Joseph Newgarden did not have a good race, which he absolutely needed, but he finished 25th, walking away with only 5 points. So that was a massive hit to his championship hopes. There are only, 4 races left? 3 or 4?
Yep.
I think 3 actually at this point. Yeah, because we've got Gateway this weekend, and then Portland, and then Laguna Seca. So there's only 3 races left.
Yeah, I like to be optimistic about things, but I don't think there's any way he's catching up. What is it, 84 points to Alex Palou?
Oh, it's more than that now.
No? Oh, okay.
So yeah, speaking of which, let's segue into the standings. Alex Palou is sitting at 539 points. Scott Dixon in second place is at 438 points. And Joseph Newgarden in third is at 434 points.
Oh,
so
yeah, okay.
Palou has over a 100-point lead at this point, 101 points to second place, with an average of about 52 points for first place. Basically, if he wins next weekend, he's won the championship. And it would have to be pretty catastrophic, actually, for him to not win the championship next weekend. But
yeah, Portland's pretty much going to be a victory lap for him, I feel like.
Yeah, essentially. And you get to go to that. I am very jealous. I will not be attending this year, unfortunately. I thought I would be, but it did not work out.
It's because you're going to Vegas instead, right?
No, I didn't. I don't have that kind of money. And most people don't, from what I understand about the ticket prices.
Yeah.
But hopefully next year I'll get to go. That is my goal. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we'll get a big streamer house.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be cool to do a podcast from the B&B or whatever we end up getting.
Live from Chicane, Grandstand K.
Yeah, right. We do it live. You just hear the cars going by. You can't hear anything we're saying. Yeah, we'll figure something out. That'd be cool to do that next year. But so that's rounds off the IndyCar races that we had for you for this week. Moving into some paddock news in IndyCar, Jack Harvey has been dropped by Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing for Connor Daly, at least for the next race. Jack Harvey's been dropped permanently by them. I don't know. Connor Daly will be doing the next race. I don't know if he will continue throughout the rest of the season or if he is their new driver. I would be very surprised if he was their new driver. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, to drop Jack Harvey for Connor Daly. But we will see how that all plays out. Hopefully Jack Harvey can find a spot with a different team. But as of right now, he does not have a drive for next season. And Connor Daly, we'll see. I don't feel like he necessarily has earned that spot at Rahal Letterman Lanigan. I'm sure he's probably just a sit-in until they can find somebody else. I think there is a plan to bring Tom Blomqvist in from IMSA next season from some team, probably Rahal Letterman Lanigan, or what was the other one? Was it Ed Carpenter? I don't remember. I think it was Ed Carpenter.
It might be.
But
who did he race for in Toronto? Do you remember?
He raced in place of it was because Simon Pagenaud is still injured, and we still haven't heard anything about his condition. I don't remember. Does Pagenaud race for Rahal? Or
this is the point where my team knowledge really fails me.
It's so much more difficult in IndyCar. Because there's big
teams,
teams, there's small teams.
Regular guy names. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he races for a team, and Blomqvist sat in for him for one race. I'm sure I've already heard that he's kind of been being talked about around the paddock as being in for next season, which would be very cool. Linus Lundqvist is getting a lot of experience in IndyCar. He's now raced the last two races in place of Pagenaud, so he could be an option as a sit-in or just getting a contract for next season. There's kind of a few things floating around right now. The IndyCar silly season is a little different and kind of a lot harder to keep up with than the F1 silly season.
Yep. Although, if you keep your eyes on Arrow McLaren, there's always going to be something to poke fun at.
Yes. Speaking of which, Alex Palou has announced that he does not intend to honor his contract with Arrow McLaren for next season. Now, this could mean a lot of things, and I also find this very funny because he did this exact same thing to, there's so many team names. He races for Chip Ganassi Racing.
That's the team that I know.
That's the team that you just completely blanked on that.
Ganassi and Andretti. That's what I got.
Ganassi, Andretti, Penske,
and McLaren.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Alex Palou does not intend to honor his contract with Arrow McLaren. He did the exact same thing to Chip Ganassi Racing last year in favor of Arrow McLaren.
Reverse Oscar Piastri.
Right, yeah. He did the exact opposite of Oscar Piastri, and he did it at the same time Oscar Piastri was doing it too, which was it was wild. That was a crazy week in motorsport news.
Those are good times.
Yeah, we had the whole Vettel retiring, Alonso taking Aston Martin, Piastri rejecting Alpine, Palou rejecting Chip Ganassi, and Ricciardo getting dropped by McLaren all within the span of like 3 days. And the F1 community was losing its mind.
Yeah, now look at us, how far we've fallen.
Yeah.
One needs a little scrap of Arrow McLaren drama, and that's it.
Yeah. So, Palou does not intend to honor his contract with McLaren once again. And that could mean a few things. That could mean he wants to stay with Ganassi, which would make sense because he's about to win a championship with them, and why change if you're doing well? Or that could mean he's in talks with Formula One teams and has a reason to believe that he will be in Formula One next year. And I can almost guarantee you if he was in Formula One, it would not be with McLaren anyway. McLaren has no reason to drop Norris or Piastri. In fact, I see both of those drivers staying at McLaren for quite a while. Kind of depending on next year, I guess. Piastri, I think, will be with McLaren for at least through the new regs. Norris is going to depend on a few things, but even still, I don't see Norris leaving anytime soon.
Yeah, he's got the benefit of being a young driver with a lot of experience, actually.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, we'll talk about silly season stuff a little bit later on. Let's go through these standings in F1 just as a review for now. In first place in the Drivers' Championship is Max Verstappen. Nobody saw that coming. Second place is Sergio Perez. Third is Fernando Alonso. Fourth is Lewis Hamilton. And fifth is Charles Leclerc, tied on points with George Russell at 99. It's kind of crazy to me that Leclerc and Russell haven't hit 100 points yet. Sainz hasn't either. But anyway, Sainz is in 7th. 8th is Norris. 9th is Stroll. 10th is Ocon. 11 through 15 are Piastri, Gasly, Albon, Hülkenberg, and Bottas. And then 16 through 20 are Zhou, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Sargent, and De Vries. De Vries is 21st. So, excuse me. Poor guy. But anyway, going through the Constructors' Championship, in first place is Red Bull Racing, followed not closely by Mercedes. Aston Martin is in third. Ferrari is in fourth, right on Aston Martin's tail. McLaren is in fifth. Alpine is in sixth. Haas is in seventh. Williams is in eighth. Alfa Romeo is in ninth. And AlphaTauri is 10th. Haas and Williams are tied at 11 points. So that could be something interesting to watch for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Man, McLaren blew past Alpine so quickly once they got their car figured out.
Yeah, once they figured out their car in Britain, they're now probably faster than... they're probably the third fastest car, honestly. So it's only a matter of time, with as many races left as there are, there's probably about 10 races left, if I were to guess, somewhere in that neighborhood. McLaren, I think, has time to catch up to Ferrari and Aston Martin in the championship. They're 90 points behind. So if they can get a few podiums, get both of their drivers up near the top 5 for the rest of the races, and be consistent and keep being as good as they have been, I could easily see them passing Ferrari and Aston Martin.
Yeah, they just the big thing it comes down to is they just need like a consistent pit strategy, and they can probably beat Ferrari on pit alone.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, but if you look at their points in Britain and Hungary, they got 30 points in Britain, 28 in Hungary, between their two drivers, which is very good, especially compared to if you look at Ferrari and Aston Martin directly above them. They're hauling in way more points than those other teams. And then you look at Belgium, and they had a little bit of an off week, but that was for other reasons.
Yeah.
They had the sprint race that weekend, and they set up their car for the sprint race essentially, and it was in the wet, and they did really well. But unfortunately, because of the way the rules work with Parc Fermé, you're not allowed to touch the car. They were not able to alter the setup for the actual race. They bet on rain, and it did not happen. So while they did still come away with a decent haul of points, it was not probably what it could have been if they were on the correct setup.
Yep.
But I would say without any craziness, they're probably going to be doing very well for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I remember last year after the new regs and Ferrari was fighting with Red Bull, I was like, man, McLaren's never going to get their chance to, take it to Ferrari and really just square up with them, and we're right back at it this season.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always like McLaren and Ferrari end up being the rival teams, it seems like.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. Apparently, according to Fred Vasseur, the Ferrari team principal, they're going to be 0.6 a lap faster next year, which, who knows?
Oh, next year?
Yeah, next season.
Okay.
So, starting next season, who knows, that they might get a considerable performance increase, but they might not. You don't know until you run the cars. It's one of those things.
So they've pretty much just written off this season already.
It seems that way.
Next season will be better.
Yeah, but they've been saying next season will be better for a long time.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they usually do get better, but everyone else gets better faster.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can only imagine how good Red Bull's going to be next year. I don't see anybody catching up to Red Bull until the regulations change again in 26.
Mm-hmm.
Their lead is too large.
Yeah, even if they brought this year's car without any upgrades, they wouldn't be as dominant, but they'd probably still be one of the fastest cars on the grid.
Yeah. And Christian Horner has said that they made sure they're a couple million under the budget cap this season, which I'm sure they had no problem doing, considering their lead is so large. They didn't feel like they had to blow it on development.
We don't actually need the wind tunnel time, we realized.
Yeah, right. Even though they got penalized for it. So, I don't know. There are other rumors of other teams breaking the budget cap. I don't remember exactly which teams it was.
I think Aston Martin was one of them.
I think it was Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari. I think it was top teams.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me because basically you just get a slap on the wrist, essentially, is the precedent that the FIA set with some wind tunnel cutbacks for the next season. But we'll see how that all plays out. There's nothing's known for sure. And but we are getting around to that time of year where we got to last season when all the talks about Red Bull breaking the budget cap came out. So if any teams did break the budget cap, I'm sure we will hear about it within the next month or so. Because it was all happening right around Singapore, which is coming up. So, who knows there. Also, some news going into the F1 paddock news. I don't have any news here on the script. We do have some rumors, though. And it is rumored that Mattia Binotto is going to be the new team principal in Alpine next season.
Incredible.
I thought it was a joke when I saw it, when Ben sent me that post.
Yeah.
I thought it was a complete meme. And then I kept seeing it in different, more reputable places as time went on. And I
Wait,
was
this
like,
isn't. Yeah, because on Reddit, well, I have to admit that I use Reddit first, but
yeah,
I follow the Formula One subreddit and I follow the Formula Dank subreddit, which is the meme page that doesn't post serious news.
yeah,
And I saw the headline and I thought it was on the meme page, but it was on the actual Formula One subreddit. And I had to like triple check just to make sure.
yeah. It's if that happens, um, if they dropped Otmar Safnauer for Mattia Binotto, that would be quite possibly the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals. I'm sorry, but
Nobody's accused the bigwigs at Alpine of being endearingly smart about decisions with the team.
no, quite the opposite. Everybody in Alpine is absolutely furious right now at their own management, which is, the sign of a well-run team. Who knows? I don't see that ending well for anybody. I don't understand why they dropped Otmar. He hasn't done anything wrong. Alpine is not a bad team per se. I don't get it. Otmar has so much experience compared to Mattia, and he has a much better track record. And I don't know. I don't know where he'll get a job next season. If he'll get a job next season, if it'll be in development or strategy, or what the deal is. I hope he's not out of F1. I could see him moving to WEC and being a team principal there. But it's just it baffled me that they dropped Otmar so quickly and in the middle of a season. I wish the best for the guy because he's a really nice guy. He's got a lot of experience, and he's done great things in the past for different teams. So, unfortunately, most of the other team principal jobs are probably pretty sound, except for possibly Günther Steiner. I didn't think about that. The Haas, there is kind of some drama going on at Haas right now. Between Gene Haas and Günther Steiner, they're not very, very much best friends right now, from everything I've been reading on the interwebs. So, if Gene Haas decides to drop Steiner as the team principal, then Otmar would be, I would say, a very, very good replacement.
That would be a massive upgrade. Could you imagine?
Yeah, that would be, I think, something that could actually legitimately turn Haas around. But we'll see, because, Otmar has experience working on a very limited budget. He did that with Force India for so many years, and they were consistently the 4th or 5th fastest team. So, I think that'd be a big pickup for Gene Haas. And now that I say it and I'm thinking about it, I would not be surprised if that happened.
That'd be pretty. Write it down. Remember it.
Yeah, we'll have to remember that. But Steiner, I think Steiner's had his shot at Haas. He's had more than enough years to do what he wanted to do. They've now been a team for, 8 years now, I think? Something like that.
Long enough that if something was going to change, it would have changed. They've been through enough drivers and enough different regulations changes.
Yeah. They've had their shot, and Haas is consistently a backmarker team now. Hülkenberg is the only reason they have any points, really, this season. Magnussen has dropped off, or at least it appears that way. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But after saying it, I haven't even thought about that when we hit record this today. But after talking about it, I could actually see Steiner being dropped in favor of Safnauer. That could definitely happen.
Well, now you got me all excited.
Yeah. All right. Now, onto some other silly season predictions. I've got this segment for our 2024 driver lineup predictions, and spoiler alert, it's not too exciting.
Once you have to get down to the backmarker teams to get anything new.
For real. And honestly, I think this year, just going I don't think anything is really going to change much this year. I think next year, though, things are going to really kick off. I think we're going to get... I think that the big piece of the puzzle is Perez. And once Perez changes, the entire grid is going to change. I am very sure of that. So he's kind of the Jenga piece that's keeping everything in order right now. And so, Ben, I guess with that, I'll let you go through your predictions for each team first.
Okay, should I just say which teams I think are staying the same and then just get right into what I think is changing?
Well, actually, let's go one team at a time. We'll do you first and then me. So,
okay.
Red Bull.
Red Bull's staying the same for next year. I don't see them dropping Perez so soon. I think they learned their lesson in the past from Albon and Gasly, and Perez he brings in too much money from so many other markets that haven't been tapped by any other teams that I think they're keeping him for at least one more year.
I agree 100%, but I do think that next year will be his last season at Red Bull.
Yep, unless he does something really incredible.
Yeah. All right. I agree with that.
Mercedes. Also the same. Russell, Hamilton. I know Hamilton hasn't agreed on a contract as of yet, I don't think.
No.
But they're going to reach an agreement. I mean, Mercedes has gotten so much better over the course of last season and this season that I think he can feel the momentum. And Russell's been a pretty strong partner for him. So he's probably staying in place for 1 or 2 years more at least.
Yeah. The Hamilton thing, I also agree, just to get this out of the way. I think Hamilton and Russell will be the lineup next year. The Hamilton contract thing is also kind of interesting. I said no paddock news, but then I keep remembering all these things. So the Hamilton contract thing is getting very interesting because it sounds like they want to nail Hamilton down into a 10-year, $200 and some odd million contract.
10-year.
Right. So, but it's different because they're doing it sounds like they want to do a thing like they did with Schumacher before Schumacher had his accident. Where Michael Schumacher, I should say, because Mick is their reserve driver right now. So not to confuse
you.
But,
yeah. Mick has not been in an accident as of yet.
Right. So Michael Schumacher was a Mercedes driver up until the end of his career. He retired from Formula One, and then he had a tragic accident, a skiing accident, and has not been the same since. But not to get too sidetracked, I think what they're doing with Hamilton is they want to have him basically fill the role that he was filling, where he's going to drive for probably a couple more years and then act as more of a team, like mentor, kind of just someone who gets paid to be there, who has a ton of experience, who knows the team well, who can offer tons of insight. He could be a development driver, basically be, just the voice of reason around the team. So they could take some risks maybe and hire some less experienced drivers, maybe some more talented, some drivers with raw talent but less experience, say, and because they have that experience in Hamilton, to help the younger drivers and mentor them in that role. So I think that's kind of what the contract is looking like right now. Again, from what I read, it sounds like it's going to be a 10-year contract with 2 or 3 of them possibly being in the driver role. Or maybe just he drives until he feels like he doesn't want to drive anymore, and then he steps back into that mentor role. But I'm sure that's why the contract is taking a long time to get signed, is because there's a lot of nuances to that have to be ironed out. But I am sure that Hamilton will not be dropped by Mercedes.
Yeah, and one thing for that is I can't really picture Hamilton, 1, going into another team, 2, really doing any other motorsport, honestly. It's kind of hard to picture him in WEC or IndyCar or any other racing series.
Yeah.
I mean, I can totally see him starting initiatives and maybe starting up his own like WEC team or something like that. But in terms of him racing outside of Mercedes F1, that's kind of hard to picture.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to know what's going on with that contract, but that's what I've heard. And so with all of that kind of weirdness and fluidity that seems to be involved in that, I'm sure it's just taking a lot longer for the contract to get nailed down than probably either party really wants. But I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll know more in the next couple months for sure. All right, moving on to Aston Martin. What do you got, Ben?
It's going to be the same. Alonso has had really good pace, and he's been a really strong face for the brand. And Stroll is Lawrence Stroll's son. So
Yes. So I am in agreement. I think it'll be the same lineup, but I will say, going into next season again, I think Stroll really needs to start bringing it, or else it's not gonna matter if he's Stroll's son. I I could see him getting. He seems to be definitely under pressure, especially with Alonso doing as well as he has been. Um, I don't know. This could just be all for naught because, there's obviously favoritism in that team. But I don't think Stroll's seat will be there forever for him. So that will be part of probably my next season predictions. But for 2024, I do think it'll still be Alonso and Stroll.
yeah, I would love to see Albon move into that seat instead of Stroll at some point. I think that'd be awesome.
I think there are apparently talks. There's rumors that Albon has been talking to 5 different teams on the grid, and I wouldn't be surprised if Aston Martin was one of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about it once we get to the Williams predictions.
Yep. All right. Ferrari.
Yep, it's going to be the same. Leclerc, Sainz.
Yep.
I mean, Leclerc's got that big fat contract.
Yep, but it does run out next season.
Really? Already? Wow. Okay.
Yep. He's still on his first contract with Ferrari, though, which is kind of insane.
Yeah.
But it does run out at the end of next season, finally. But they're already talking about extending it to like a 3+2 deal. But anyway, so I don't see Leclerc leaving this season at least. Sainz, same way. I am on board with you. It'll be the same lineup at Ferrari next season. But I also do not see Sainz in that seat forever. I'm really excited for the 2025 silly season because I think it's gonna be nuts.
Especially with everyone gearing up for before
the new regs,
regulation changes. They're not going to want to do a whole lot of seat changes before the cars change drastically.
They're going to want people to be integrated into their teams when the cars change. So, my pre-prediction.
That's being a mad dash.
Yeah, my pre-prediction is Sainz will go to Alfa Romeo in 2025, which will be a temporary step down, and it won't be Alfa Romeo.
Which will be Sauber.
It'll be Sauber. So, yeah, technically, for these driver lineups, Alfa Romeo will not be Alfa Romeo. It will be Sauber starting next season. And AlphaTauri will be Hugo Boss Bull's F1 team, which is quite possibly the worst team name ever.
I did not hear about this. When did this happen?
Oh, this is a couple weeks old. I don't think anything's been officially locked down yet. But Hugo Boss, from what I understand, is going to be the new primary sponsor for AlphaTauri. And the proposed team name that I read somewhere, I don't know if it was an official source, but the proposed team name I read was Hugo Boss Bull's F1 team, which is absolutely atrocious.
That's not good. I mean, I know AlphaTauri's really been doing a lot of like fashion branding as a push, but wow, that's really bad.
Well, AlphaTauri, I think, is going to be dropped completely from the car. I think the Red Bull team will still be wearing AlphaTauri merch, but I think the AlphaTauri line just failed, and I think they're trying to kind of phase that out. So
I also think they'd bring back Toro Rosso, but oh well.
I wish they brought back Toro Rosso, especially if the Hugo Boss Bulls is the alternative.
The bad timeline.
Yeah. It's like that meme where they say upgrade again, and then it's like, no, go back. I said go back.
No.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know what the official name is yet. Nobody knows yet. Same with Sauber. We don't know what the official team name will be, but I imagine Sauber will be the primary name.
Yeah.
But, yep, so moving on to McLaren. What do you got?
Big news, it'll be the same.
Yep.
It's a pretty young team.
Like I hinted at earlier on in the podcast, I do think it will be Norris and Piastri staying at McLaren for quite a while. I think that is quite the power lineup right there. In terms of driver pairings, I think that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, Norris got a whole lot of experience with McLaren racing alongside Sainz and Ricciardo, and outracing both of them at points. And this season, he's actually been a pretty mature driver. So I think that, along with Piastri, like having two pretty young drivers who have been, there have been some ups and downs, but at least towards the end of the season, they'll probably be ending it on a good note. So they'll have plenty of confidence. They'll be young and ready to be with the team and sign many more multi-year contracts for years to come.
Yeah, for sure. So not much to talk about there. I think it'll be Norris and Piastri for a while. Moving on to Alpine, what do you got?
That'll be the same too. I don't really see. I mean, we really haven't had the drama that we expected or wanted last year when you heard about this and heard about all the driver changes. But I mean, it's been an okay driver pairing. They haven't attacked each other yet, and most of the collisions they've had together haven't necessarily been their fault.
Yeah.
But I just think there's no alternative, really.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think it'll be exactly the same as this year, Gasly and Ocon. The only moment they had was in Australia where they crashed into each other, but again, it wasn't really anybody's fault because there was craziness on that
I thought
restart.
They had one more recently.
They might have.
I don't know.
But I don't remember anything major. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But again, I don't see any reason for Alpine to change. Williams, what do you got?
Williams is going to stay the same for this year, but next year is going to be absolutely bonkers.
Yes.
I know. I feel pretty certain that Albon is not going to be at Williams in 2025. Yeah. I don't know about Sargent. I think that really depends on 2024.
Yes.
I think if he can learn and mature and show that he can be consistent, not even with scoring a huge amount of points every race, but keeping the car safe and making good decisions, I think he has a chance to stay at Williams for 2025. But for 2024, it's going to stay the same.
Yep, I'm in agreement there, and I'm on board with you with the other things too. I don't think Albon will be at Williams past 2024. And Sargent is, gonna entirely depend on next season. If he doesn't improve from where he is now, he'll be dropped. If he makes steps forward, he could have a shot to stay. If I were to make my 2025 predictions right now, I would probably say that Williams will have neither of those drivers in 2025.
The scary part is, I mean, you saw what happened with Haas when they got rid of both their drivers going into a new regulation season.
Yeah.
And that really did not work out well for them.
Yes, but in 2025, I would see
guess
them.
That'll be the same.
I could see them taking an experienced driver and then maybe a rookie. Frederick Vesti in F2 is looking very good. And he's in the Mercedes track, so I could see him being possibly the rookie that they put in there in 25. And then if they got someone already on the grid who might not have a seat or might
maybe
just
Valtteri
want to
Bottas.
trade. I was thinking Bottas. I was thinking if AlphaTauri drops Ricciardo. Possibly if Alpine changes, maybe Gasly or Ocon, or even Mick Schumacher, because Mick Schumacher, while he didn't have the greatest of careers at Haas, that wasn't entirely his fault. And I think after being a reserve driver at Mercedes for a couple years, we did see all of the great things that did for Ocon. Ocon, I think, became a much better driver after his stint as a reserve at Mercedes. So I could see Williams taking someone like Schumacher and then having a rookie. So maybe
Okay.
it'll be a risk, but I don't see it turning out the same way it did for Haas. But Haas
Okay.
Haas had some. There were a
The
lot of
car was a
problems.
write-off.
Yeah, there were a lot of problems that year in Haas, and it wasn't entirely down to the drivers.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of Haas, let's move on there, and this is where stuff starts to change. At
Yeah.
least for
Not
me.
for
So what do
me.
you got?
I think Hulkenberg and Magnussen are going to stay on one more year simply because uh, if there's, a tumultuous time with the team principal, like you're saying, maybe just to stick to changing out team principal and don't mess with the drivers who have been scoring some points better than last year for sure. And at least getting like development time in the car because the car clearly still needs some edges sanded off.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see your take on that team shakeup.
Yeah, so I have Hulkenberg and Teo Porcher. So Teo Porcher is currently the championship leader in the F2 series right now. If he wins F2, I think he will get put into Haas. Because if you win F2, for those who don't know, if you win the F2 championship, you're not allowed to partake in the F2 championship the following year, which is what happened to Piastri, which is why he didn't have a seat for that year gap. But with Magnussen, in my opinion, dropping off, not being anywhere near Hulkenberg, I could see them keeping Hulkenberg and then taking in Teo Porcher as this young, exciting, really quick driver. Because Hulkenberg is older. He's in his mid-30s. So I could see them having that voice of reason and experience in Hulkenberg, who's also very quick and scoring points consistently, or semi-consistently, I'll say. And then having a younger rookie that might be, there for the transition into the new regs, be there for a good couple years, just to get his feet under him. Someone like Porcher. That is what I see happening in Haas, especially if they change their team principal. Counter to Ben's point, if they take Otmar Safnauer, I think he would make the change over Steiner. I think Steiner has more of a, emotional connection to Magnussen because that's kind of in the good years that Haas did have. It was with Magnussen and Grosjean, and so I think that's part of the reason why Magnussen came back in the first place.
That makes sense.
So we'll see. But that is my guess for next season is if Porcher wins the F2 title, which it's looking good for him right now, it'll be Hulkenberg and Porcher. And then,
Magnussen getting sent back to the IMSA zone.
Yeah, which I wouldn't mind. I think it would be cool to watch him there.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that he got another shot at F1 anyway. I think that's pretty neat.
Ended up on a better note than when he left.
For sure. All right, Alfa Romeo.
Yep, so this is my first shakeup. Of course, we're down to the last two teams. But I have Bottas staying, and then I have Schumacher going in.
Okay.
And my reason for that is Toto Wolff has been very transparent in, look, Mick Schumacher is a great driver. It'd be super cool if somebody gives him a seat for next season. Very clearly, Toto Wolff, I don't know if he's still involved in Mick's career path.
He seems to be.
But he seems to be still pretty heavily invested in that. And the Bottas-Schumacher combo, I feel like there's a chance for Schumacher to get a little more experience in a car alongside a really experienced driver. It's not a super fast team, but a seat is a seat. And especially when Alfa Romeo goes to Sauber, I can see them wanting maybe a German driver to go along with their newly Germanized brand.
Yeah, because they're becoming Audi anyway.
Yeah, they're becoming Audi anyways. So I could see like some strong brand synergy there. Especially, you have the name change, but then you have a Schumacher name on your team. I could see that being a big boon to them.
For sure, and it makes a lot of sense. Now looking at yours, it makes a lot more sense than mine. Uh, but yeah, bringing Schumacher to Sauber with it being a German company, and then turning into Audi in a couple years, oh man, this could all work out so perfectly. Oh, I think you're right, Ben. Yeah, so Schumacher going into Sauber next to Bottas, who's got the experience. I see Schumacher beating Bottas, no problem, honestly.
I mean, Joe was challenging Bottas.
Yeah, I don't think Bottas is quite what he used to be.
No, but he has experience.
That's the thing, which is why I think he'll stay for another year until the end of his contract, which will be next season.
Yeah, he's the new Kimi Räikkönen.
So this is what I see happening.
Okay.
I'm gonna say what my prediction was. Okay, so I'll just say what my prediction was. It was Bottas and Tsunoda. I think Tsunoda will get dropped from AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that. But going back to yours, which I think is my actually new one. now that I'm seeing it and thinking about it. Schumacher goes to Sauber. It's Bottas and Schumacher for next season. Bottas teaches Schumacher a few things, but then Schumacher beats him. Bottas gets dropped at the end of the next season. He's out of F1. He's got other interests. He owns many companies. I don't think he'll even be that sad about it.
Yep, he'll go bicycle racing and drink beer.
Exactly. That seems to be his. Every time he has any time off, he's in the mountains in Colorado drinking gin and racing mountain bikes. So I could see that being his path. I see him leaving F1. I see Carlos Sainz moving to Sauber in 2025. So Sauber becomes Sainz Schumacher, turning into Audi in 2026 fully. You got the German driver of Schumacher. You've got Carlos Sainz Jr., who Carlos Sainz Sr. has won championships racing with Audi in rally. It all makes sense.
The brand synergy.
Oh, exactly. So, and that's
and why
all
Sainz
these.
Is a solid driver.
That's the thing is, like, Sainz has so many ties to Audi already through his father. That's why all of these rumors are that Sainz has already had pre-contract signings and talks with Audi for the future. So that's why I'm so excited for 2025. I think it's all going to kick off next year. So my pre-2025 prediction is that Alfa Romeo, which will be Sauber, will become Sainz and Schumacher. That makes a lot of sense to me.
That's 5D chess right there.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good call on your part. Them bringing Schumacher in. Zhou hasn't been bad per se, but he's not been anything special.
No.
So unfortunately for him, I don't see him getting a seat anywhere else. There are some other parties like P1 with Matt and Tommy, and a few other news sources that disagree with me and think Zhou will be in different places, which is possible, but I don't see him jumping teams.
Yeah, reserve driver at best, I think.
Yeah, probably. So, alright, so that's our Alfa Romeo predictions. I said Bottas and Tsunoda. I think Tsunoda will get dropped by AlphaTauri, and that was the only place he fit. I don't think he quite deserves to be off the grid yet. But now seeing the Schumacher thing, it makes a lot more sense to me.
We can share, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. But alright.
Anyways.
AlphaTauri, our final team. What do you got?
Yeah, I've got Ricciardo staying, and I've got Lawson slotting in.
Lawson, okay. Yeah. That was my... So you also see Tsunoda getting dropped?
Yeah. Especially alongside Ricciardo. That's just going to exacerbate the performance, I think.
Yeah, and Ricciardo has said that he feels a lot better in that car than he did in the McLaren. So, yeah, my prediction is Danny Ricciardo and Alex Palou, I think.
Which I really prefer. I think that's the way more exciting prediction.
Yeah, I think that is probably what it's going to be, especially with Palou up and saying he's not going to honor that McLaren contract. I feel like the only reason he does that is because he already knows he's going to be somewhere else. And I don't see any other team taking Palou right off the bat like this other than AlphaTauri. So, that's my prediction. I do think if it wasn't Palou, it would be Lawson. I just don't see Tsunoda staying at that team another year.
Yeah, and I think maybe last year or something before we really had the Piastri-Norris combination cemented, before he knew if Piastri was going to stay or go after a season, at least in IndyCar, going to McLaren was, viewed as maybe a roadmap to getting an F1 seat with McLaren. Now that's not the case. That door has been firmly closed.
Oh, yeah.
I can definitely see some drivers that maybe were interested in McLaren before, maybe not so much, but still trying to figure out a way to get to F1, which AlphaTauri would be a great way to do that.
I mean, it seems like the three drivers that always were saying that they wanted to be in F1 eventually were Palou, O'Ward, and Herta. And even O'Ward now has said that he wants to stay in IndyCar until he wins a championship. So being between Palou and Herta definitely will not get his super license this year.
No.
So, yeah, Palou makes a lot of sense. He's the only one that's qualified. He'll win the championship. He'll have 2 championships under his belt. I think he's done what he feels like he needs to do in IndyCar. With him wanting, and his dream was always to be an F1 driver growing up in Spain. So I could definitely see the appeal there. And if this is his one shot to get in, I could see him taking it for sure.
Yeah, and that one championship is nice, but that having 2 championships under your belt shows that you're not just a flash in the pan, one off because of some weird team synergy or some car setup that was magically dialed in. But that shows that it's actually you, you're putting in the work and you're getting it done multiple times.
And especially the second time being as dominant as it is in a spec series is insane.
Yeah, so I honestly think it'd be kind of dumb if AlphaTauri didn't take Palou, but it's still kind of a risk going outside of the series. I think that F1 really hasn't shown any interest in before, necessarily.
Yeah, it's hard to know, but I think that makes the most sense to me for them, and it's a very exciting prospect. So that is what I hope happens, and that is my prediction.
I want that to be how it happens.
Yeah. All right. Moving into that kind of concludes our driver lineup predictions. Let's move on to the pit stop championship. Go through the standings real quick. In first place is Perez. Second is Leclerc. Third is Verstappen. Fourth is Norris. Fifth is Sainz. Sixth is Ocon. What happened to all of the... Oh, they're out of order. I forgot to sort them. Fantastic.
Classic.
Love it. Seventh appears to be Piastri. Yes. 8th is Gasly. 9th is Tsunoda. 10th is Alonso. 11th is De Vries. 12th is Stroll. 13th is Hamilton. 14th is Russell. 15th is Sargent. 16th is Ricciardo. 17th is Bottas. 18th is Magnussen. 19th is Zhou. 20th is Albon. And 21st is Hülkenberg. The fact that Alex Albon is doing as well as he has when he's had what appears to be no good pit stops is pretty insane.
That's impressive.
Yep. All right, going through the teams, which these ones appear to be in order. We have Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Mercedes, Williams, Alfa Romeo, and Haas. All right. Moving on to the overtake of the week, which is more like the overtake of the first half of August. I gave this one to Devlin De Francesco for his overtake on Graham Rahal on the first lap of the IMS road course, second race, the Gallagher Grand Prix.
It was his overtake on the entire front half of the grid?
Yeah, it was on Rahal, was what I wrote down. But it was really on 4 people.
He went from 6th to 1st.
Yeah, he sent it, absolutely sent it around the outside at turn 1, and it was quite simply spectacular. So that is going to be in contention for overtake of the year, I think, at the end of the year. It was very, very impressive that he kept that clean, and he almost went off the track. Rahal almost pushed him off the track, but he barely kept his wheels on the circuit. It was beautiful.
It was awesome.
So good job for him. We don't see his name pop up very often in terms of, just talking about him at all. He's kind of one of those in the background guys, but he drives for Andretti, and so he's got a good team behind him. So yeah, good job to him. Good to see him making moves, quite literally. All right, moving on to our predictions. We'll go over the results for our predictions for the last couple of IndyCar races, starting with Nashville. Who did you have on pole position, Ben?
Man, this did not go well for either of us.
No,
I had Dixon on pole.
Yep, and I had Ericsson, and it went to Scott McLaughlin. Podium, what'd you have on your podium, Ben?
I did have Palou, so that was cool. But then I had Dixon again, and I had Grosjean. That did not work out as well.
No. However, both of them did do very well at that race. Then I had Ericsson and Palou and Herta, and the actual podium was Kirkwood, McLaughlin, and Palou. So we both got Palou right, but did not get the other two. And then winning...
Bold of you to put Herta's prediction on a track with walls on it.
Yeah, I see my mistake now. Winning number of pit stops. Oh, man.
I had 4.
And I had 2. And can you guess at home how many pit stops was the winning number of pit stops? It was 3.
Yeah, I thought there would be more carnage and more pit stops under yellows just because you could.
Yeah. And I thought street circuit, it'll be 2 pit stops. But no. 3 pit stops. It was
a mix of the both.
Of course. All right. So that's Nashville. Let's move on to IMS 2. Who'd you have on pole position?
I had Palou on pole.
And I had O'Ward, and pole went to Graham Rahal, which I'm sure not a lot
Neither
of people
us could have predicted.
No. All right, podium.
I had Herta, Power, and Lundgaard. I feel like Herta always does well at these, but he hasn't really done that well at them.
No. I had Palou, Lundgaard, and O'Ward. And the podium was Dixon, Rahal, and O'Ward. So I did get O'Ward right, but the rest were wrong.
Yep. I'm okay with being wrong. It was cool to see Rahal get that podium.
For sure. All right. Winning number of pit stops. What'd you have, Ben?
I had 4.
And I had 3, and it was 3. So
finally,
I get that point. Yay. Do you have... That runs off our weekly predictions. Do you have any words of wisdom for us, Ben?
I think I do. This one's kind of off the cuff, but I've been looking for truck tires. Mine are about 30 to 40% of their life left, and it's getting pretty close to winter, and with the amount that I'm driving, I think I'm going to need more. But I keep looking, and there's some really cheap tires you can get, believe me. But it's so worth it getting nice tires. They're quieter. They last longer generally, depending on what kind of tire you're getting. There's so many benefits to getting nicer name brand tires. And especially for winter, if you have a truck, getting the triple peak rated is super worth it. Get ones with a good warranty. And don't neglect your tires. Don't let them to go bald. Swap them out, even if there's still, 20% life on them, 25% of the life. Especially if you drive in a place where it's really rainy or really snowy. It's very nice to have tires with tread on them.
Awesome stuff, Ben.
So, I don't really know where I was going with that, but yeah, tires are important, I guess. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Out. Good thing for good words of wisdom for a racing podcast. Everybody go in, get a pit stop before the winter. Get yourself some fresh tires all season.
See what you did there.
Yeah, of course. You can do it Formula E style. Do it Formula E style, where you have the same tires for the dry and the wet conditions.
Yeah. Or other Formula E style, where you just have a different car in the garage and you swap to that.
Yeah, but I mean that's a little expensive. But anyway, good stuff, Ben. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys so much for listening to this episode of RevHang. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or rating on the platform you listened on. Really helps us out. If you want to see updated standings for IndyCar and F1 or a calendar of upcoming racing from all sorts of different series, check out our website, revhang.com. If you have a question about racing or about us, hit us up on Twitter using hashtag RevHangPodcast, and we may feature your question on the next show. You can follow Ben on Instagram at BenjiMeetsWorld and myself at 2N_squared. You can also follow our page at RevHang Media on Instagram. We'll be back in a week to talk about the Formula One Dutch Grand Prix, but until then, I have been Nathan.
It's so close to back. Just hang on a little longer, guys.
What?
I was like so close to being back. Just hang on a little longer. Like,
oh yeah,
F1 is. What have I done?
I had no idea what you said.
Oh no.
Thanks for hanging out.
Well, yeah. See you guys later.
Later.